Shut up and sit down.
And welcome to the Week 9 edition of the BlackSwarm podcast. Hank Piper and Rob Antonell. Massillon a lot. Texas Academy of whatever the hell, nothing. And I'm going to be quite honest with you, brother. I feel like I'm coming into this week how you normally say you do, in which I don't really remember anything about the game. So I know you didn't even go in, but I'm just going to kick this one to you, and let's see if we can jog each other's memories. What do we think of the game?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that we did a pretty good job on offense, really efficient. I think I saw that like our first two drives only took like 6 plays each, and then not a single drive after that was longer.
Damn.
Gamble lit up the stat sheet with his yards only on 15 carries, like 280 yards, 15 carries. I heard a lot of negative things about how the other team was coached slash prepared slash the whole situation of how they came up here and what their plan was. And, there's a lot of negatives out there talking about how their coaches were ignoring the players and spending their whole time yelling at the refs instead of, coaching up any of their kids and not doing any adjustments. So, I mean, it's kind of disappointing to see. They had some good players on that team. They were missing their center, who was the Texas A&M commit, right?
Yeah,
I think. And their backup center had no business going against Big Mike. So I mean, it was kind of a struggle for them, obviously, even though they do have some good players on their team. The one negative talking point about Massillon's performance is one that we've talked about quite a bit this year, and it seems to show itself the most in these types of games. Which I don't know if that's. I don't really know how to look at it. It's like it's the penalties. We have way too many penalties, but it only shows up in the bad games. So it's like on one hand we shouldn't really care because when we need to clean it up we can, but it makes you wonder why can't we just keep it clean all the time, right? It's like a lack of focus kind of thing. So if we've already shown that we can go penalty free if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So, why do we see these games like this where we blow out the stat sheet with penalties, including not one, but two on the same kickoff, offsides penalties?
Yeah, the penalties thing, I mean, it's basically a non-issue for me at this point. It's just, each team has their own type of personality, and I think a lot of the Massillon, like in the last few years, our personality's been, we're not going to start the fight, but we'll get lippy, we'll chirp, we're not going to be the first to swing, but we will swing back, more in a figurative sense than a literal one. And when we're playing teams that we know have no business being out there against us, the kids just disengage and lose focus a little bit, and it kind of is what it is. If we hadn't had the Eds, the Virgin Catholic, and the one other one, I can't remember off the top of my head, where we did clean it up because we had to, then I would be worried. But now it's just, they got a feel for this team that came in, knew it wasn't going to be nothing, and just kind of disengaged. And I don't know if it's like an old man take for me to say that's just like this generation, if it's the culture of the program. I don't know. I'm not pointing fingers at anything because I genuinely don't know. I mean, I don't want to call it a culture issue because when we need to clean it up, we do. Is it just this new generation of kids that want to do, gun celebrations after a big play? That grew up on TikTok and with the phone in their hand, an iPad, whatever, all, their entire lives? Or is it just the last couple batches of kids that came through and it just looks bad because it's, recent memory? I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, but it's not just like personal fouls, taunting. It's just across the board penalties.
Yeah. And I think that's a thing. You see it sometimes at every level, especially in games where, like, you're not as engaged.
No,
Where
no, hold on. Not only have I never seen it at another level, I've never seen it for another team
can I
where
finish?
they're offsides on a kickoff, and we do it every game.
Can I finish the thought? The offside is bad. I'm not speaking on that one specifically. That one is off the table right now. But where you get like a false start or an illegal formation, just one of those dumb penalties, and you get inside your head and they just stack and stack and stack. You see it, we talked about this the other day off air where it's like, Browns finally get into a third and manageable situation and here comes the false start. It's you just get inside your head about some shit, or it's, another sport metaphor when a shooter goes cold, that they just, you see so many not go in, and then you just get inside your own head, and that just piles up, and then more mistakes happen. Or when a receiver gets the yips, a golfer can't hit off the tee to save his life. The shit happens. The offsides on kickoff, that doesn't happen, and I can give you your soapbox if you want to go on that a little more. But I don't have an answer for you, but it being consistently against the teams that it doesn't so much matter against doesn't make it a worrying point for me.
No, I agree with that part of it. It's only showing up against the teams where it doesn't matter. That's how I led this off. But I mean, like you talking about the Browns. The Browns have false starts because they are insanely undisciplined. And, that falls back on nothing more than coaching. I know it's the NFL and each player is responsible for their own right. But, like when you are consistently not lining up correctly, that is a systematic issue. They're not being held accountable. Now, that talking about the Cleveland Browns, right? But just saying, oh, your left tackle's gonna have false starts because he's in his own head because it's 3rd and 5. He has to have a false start. That's a dumb take. A receiver that's dropped 2 balls and now he's hyper focused about it. That's one thing. But like not lining up in the right spot, like stuff like that. That's completely different than having the yips. Like, a center that's getting beat by the nose tackle every single time and he's messing up his snaps. That's the yips. But like not lining up correctly, false starts, stuff like that in general. That's not well, it's going to happen. It happens to everybody because they get in their own head type of thing. It's genuinely inexcusable. It happens, but it has to be limited. And I'm not specifically talking about us. I'm going into your dumb excuse for why it happens.
It's not an excuse. It's a rationalization.
It is an excuse.
It's not an excuse. I'm not saying...
You said these dumb kids and their phones, and that just gets in their head. They have to false start.
I didn't say they have to false start. I said that shit just bleeds into it, and then that can happen. I'm not saying it's an excuse. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm looking for the reasons why it can happen, just thinking out loud about this, because just like every other show, I come in here with no takes, and I'm just kind of shooting from the hip, and I'm just trying to rationalize why you can just, get dumb penalties, and I wish I could speak more specifically on some of the ones we had outside of the offsides on kickoff, but I didn't. I kind of checked out at halftime, probably like the rest of the team did, because this team from Texas wasn't nothing. It's not to excuse the behavior. It's to why is this happening? How, and then not my job, but then you go, how can we fix it? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Finding the why is not an excuse for behavior specifically. It's just it's interesting to me is why it might happen, and that can be something. And when you get inside your head like that, I think not lining up in the right spot or getting those false starts can be a sign of the yips, because then you just start overthinking about everything. It's like, okay, we got to be perfect on this play, have to do this, have to do this, have to do this. Yada, 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 yada. Now, instead of playing, you're thinking about it. And you know how you said, when a receiver looks robotic when they're trying to do it, but they do it correctly, but robotic, it's because they're thinking about everything. Now, when you're inside your own head, think about everything, but in a don't fuck it up kind of way, that is exactly when you fuck up the dumb, simple stuff.
I hear what you're saying. I just don't think it's right. So when in the most important times, the most nerve-wracking games of the year, going against the best competition with the highest stakes on the line, we perform great. But when you have nothing to lose, no worries in the world, that's when you start stressing about how tough your position is and you get in your own head. No.
Listen, I know you're Mr. Joe Cool, like no emotions over here, and just go out and play in any kind of situation. These kids are not you. This is an extremely highly emotional team. And
Yeah, which would make more sense if they messed up against the good teams. They're
it,
messing up against the bad teams. That seems more like a focus issue than a stress concern, issue. They're not worried about lining up correctly against this team. They're worried about lining up correctly against Eds.
and when you're playing with that kind of focus that you need against those higher level teams is when it's
So
just
they're losing. So they're losing focus and not taking it seriously. That's what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay.
I kind of thought that's what I like led this whole spiel off with.
Yeah, but then you went on
That
a different
that what
tangent
that
about
was
how they're worried about it.
that was the premise. And when you're focused and locked in, it's just easier to go out there and execute and do your job. When you're just kind of out there all loosey goosey and then you fuck up it without being focused in initially, it's just easier to stack the fuck ups on top of the fuck ups.
Okay.
That was the point. And is that what's happening? I don't know. Not in the locker room. Couldn't tell you. Just thinking out loud, looking for answers here. That's all. That's all we're doing. I do want to go back though because I didn't even like look on Facebook, social media, or anything. Really see much about the game. Do you have any more info on like why their coaches were bad, or was that pretty much it? Because I'm actually kind of interested in the story now.
Yeah, essentially they were just harassing the refs the entire game.
Mm.
And they had a pretty small team, pretty small coaching staff. But from what I was reading, the people that were complaining about it, uh, essentially they would have like six of their eight coaches out on the sideline yelling at the refs the entire time rather than like talking to the team. Like the offense comes off the field, they're not coaching up the offensive line or anything. It's just like, hey, go sit down. We're going to go out on the field and yell at the refs a little bit more. And I mean, I don't know. This is just what I've seen multiple people talking about. It's not really my take, but there was a lot of concern about the team themselves. It's almost like it was a disservice to the kids about how they put this whole production on. They drove up here like on Thursday or Friday. They drove up here on a bus, played the game, and drove back home.
Yikes.
And had school on Monday.
So basically, I think when we talked about this last week, it was, this team is somewhere between NFL Academy and Bishop Sycamore, and we don't know where they land on that spectrum. I think we just got our answer, and it seems like they're landing a lot closer to the Bishop Sycamores of the world than the NFL Academies, which is, yeah, at the end of the day, it is a disservice to the kids. I mean, they get to travel, they get to see some. I mean, I guess you get to see some cool shit on the way because it doesn't sound like they had much time to see, anything in between the 16-hour bus ride up and back, pretty much right around game time. But yeah, that's kind of a shame to hear. I didn't know where I wanted to put this into the podcast episode, but I did see today. It was in one of the Facebook groups. Just wanted to get your take on it, and it seemed to be unrelated to this game specifically, but somebody posted, who here has actually played football? And there was a lot of old heads, trying to claim I played back in the day when men were men and it was either do this or go to Korea. And then a gaggle of football moms jumped in and were like, oh, I've watched enough football could follow it pretty well. And I kind of walked away with a take of, you can like be a football nerd and know plenty about the game, but there is still a big line between knowing it and being able to watch it and understand what's happening and like having been out there and done it yourself and knowing what it's like to be in that live fire situation.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously different. Every sport is going to be a little bit different, but yeah, if you didn't play sports or you didn't play at a competitive level, it's going to be very hard for you to truly understand what's happening, throughout a game, a pre-game, a post-game, what a locker room is like, what warm-ups are like. So, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a dynamic to every sport that obviously can be most relatable to those that played it. But yeah, it's just one of those things, right? If you didn't play football, you're missing out on a lot of background information about what goes into it and just how everything operates. Everything's on a schedule. You know ahead of time. I'm sure it's still like this now. I mean, when we played, it was you get out of school and then 3:05 we're starting the indoors starting walkthroughs in the indoor. 3:37 we're walking up to the state. Like it's by the minute breakdowns of exactly how everything happens leading up to a game. Specialists have to be out on the field at 5:07. Quarterbacks and receivers 5:21, get it out there. We're going to do like, and everything's super timed, super organized. Um, and you have to fall in line with it. Then when you're on the sideline, it's everything's completely different. You practice all week, and the best coaches say that the toughest part of the week is practice. The game should be easy, but that's not how it works. And then even the dynamic of how you practice versus how you play is completely different, right? When you're out there in practice, the coaches want you to learn everything you can possibly learn. They want you to memorize every call. They want you to understand how to line up against every formation. And then as soon as you get out there on Friday, the coaches are yelling at you what to do. So like, as like defensive backs, we were always grilled into knowing what coverages we needed to call based on what team we were playing, what formation they line up in. And we had to call it ourselves. We had to learn it. We had to memorize it. And then as soon as the game time comes around, there's Coach Hack. There's, the corner coach. They're just yelling at you, cover three. You're running cover three this time. It's just, and then you come off. And I'm sure it's the same thing with the linemen. You're practicing all week and they're trying to make it tough on you. And if you mess up, hey, just run the play again, right? Maybe you got grilled real quick, but run it again. We're going to get it right. And it's just completely different in a game because nothing goes the way that you practiced. And there's so many nuances to it for sure. And, it's really simple to say run left. Why aren't we running left more often? It's like, okay, well, what kind of run? There's 80 different types of runs we can do. Which front, which defensive front are you saying we should run left to? Just all of them or only when they line up in this front? When they have this player to the field, then should we run to the left? There's so many nuances to understanding the game and understanding the explicit X and O's of the game. And then there's what is the entire process of just being in a locker room with a group of guys like to going out there and relying on people next to you versus looking up and seeing 20,000 people in the stands with lights above you. There's so many different things that go on in sports that you will never truly understand it unless you went through it yourself.
Yeah, and I was kind of even taking it a step further of, you can be that just complete football junkie nerd type where it's, you can know the fronts, you can know the formations, you can know the runs, you can know this, that, or the other. You can know everything inside and out like the back of your hand, but until you've been out there and done it yourself, it's just a different animal of like actually, being in there and playing it and doing it. I always kind of joke on the podcast about how, back in high school, I was kind of a pussy. But your senior year, so my junior year, when we were scrimmaging Eds, I almost got in a fight with their center when I was playing nose guard because he tried to rip my helmet off like 4 times in a row. And then he finally got it off, and I'm staring the kid down. And I think nothing happened because their coach walked up with my helmet and handed it to me as like kind of a, I'm not telling you to like not start anything, but I'm gonna like take your attention away from this shit. You just don't understand the emotions and what it's like to be out there and how you can just like short circuit sometimes. I might have mentioned it before, but when we were playing Booktel my senior year, I got a little playing time at center, and all week we practiced for it, and where they'd come up, line up in an odd front, a 3-3 stack, walk their will linebacker down, and bump the head up nose to a 1 tech and their end down to a 3 tech. And, before that shift, my job on power is to double team the nose with the guard up to the backside backer. After that shift, I make a call, and now I'm blocking back on the 3 tech. We call power twice in a row. First one, they do the shift. I make the call. I block back. I'm out there with the scrub, so it's probably like a gain of 2. Next play, they do the exact same play call, same shift, and my brain just blue screens. And I just double with the nose. That 3 tech comes free, makes a tackle on the backfield, and I'll never forget hearing Coach Pierce from the sideline, because I think he was the running back coach on the side, just, "Come on, Hank." I'm like, God damn it. And that was my last career snap at center in any meaningful context. But it's like little shit like that you'd never understand it without having done it yourself. And and we could, if you know what you're talking about, we could still respect your opinion, but you just have to come at it with that understanding of, if I haven't done this, I truly can't completely talk about it with, any sort of knowledge. Like, I can't talk about what it's like to play DB or wide receiver. The same thing, you can't fully comprehend what it's like to play right guard and skip pull on power. When you're talking skinny guy play, I let you cook. When I'm talking fat guy play, you tend to let me cook.
Yeah, I mean, outside of like individual positions, on top of what I was saying earlier, yeah, I mean, your point about emotions is very true. Um, Everybody has those kind of like spurts of emotions that pop up, and um, I remember, senior year, week 1. All week we had to hear about how Bookdale's safety was going to like Michigan State or something, and how hard of a hitter he is. And me, I was mild tempered would maybe be an apt description. I was always so concerned about doing something wrong that I wasn't able to play free. I didn't play with emotion. I was pretty robotic, but I was a slot receiver in that formation, and we were running the ball, and I my responsibility was go up onto the free safety, and he did not see me coming. And I, just knocked him flat on his ass. And the running back ended up breaking it behind me and ended up scoring. And just for whatever reason, my first emotion after knocking him over was to like celebrate. Like, I knocked him on his ass, and I like fist pumped, and just like, I just remember I was looking at their sideline, and I could like see the people on the sideline's reaction to like seeing their teammate getting knocked out. And just like, for whatever reason, I went from just being super calm and centered. And if anything, the reason that I hit him that hard was because I was worried about how hard of a hitter he is, how good of a player he is, and I caught him off guard, and just like that rush of emotion. And then I remember like immediately running to the end zone, because once I came to, my first thought was, oh shit, I'm supposed to go celebrate like with my teammates. But like, just that initial burst of emotion, like, it just came out of nowhere. I've never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
I need to scoot back from this table. I keep kneeing the table and making it shake.
I noticed that. I wasn't going to say anything
Yeah.
now.
I tried to stop. I scooted back a little bit, but not far enough. But like, yeah, so I mean, emotions happen, right? You have to limit it. You have to not do the dumb reactions.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be reactions out there, but there's just so much to it that you never really understand. I remember being on kickoff return one time, and I was on the second level, and my job was to I buddied up with somebody, and we were just basically kicking out the end man on their kickoff team. And like me and the guy I was buddied up with, we weren't like the best of friends. I don't know if there was like some tenacity between us or we just like weren't buddies. But like either way, like, we didn't really talk much. We weren't that close. Um, and for whatever reason, come game time, it worked every day. Every day in practice, we did this, and it was no problem. Come game time, I lost him. I don't know where he went, but so I had to go block the guy by myself essentially. And I was blocking him to the whistle, and he started getting all fiery, and he was like trying to throw his hands up into my face. And the guy that I'm supposed to be buddied up with just comes up and just cleans. Like he saw that he was like not really fighting me, but like getting pissed that I was blocking him and holding him to the whistle,
Hmm.
and just like knocks him over. And there's just that like brotherhood, just like yeah, like like he had my back kind of thing. I'm still mad that he didn't come like he didn't do the play right, but but it's just like that random like throughout the week, like we're not best friends.
Hmm.
We're not even like that cordial with each other. But then like as soon as you get out there and we're wearing the same jersey going against somebody else, you have a common enemy. It's amazing how fast, people link up. And I think that is something that's relatable, but in a sport with physicality, it's a little bit different. You actually are, coming close to fighting somebody with other people on your team every single play.
Hmm.
And it means something. There is like a mental aspect to that. And if you don't like trust the people next to you, that's how a lot of teams break is they don't have trust. And as corny and cliche as it is, like you have to have that unity. You have to have a brotherhood within the locker room. And um, if you have ever heard like a coach losing the locker room, that's usually like an NFL type thing. But it's true. If you ever lose the locker room, if your players don't trust you as a coach anymore, if they don't trust you as their quarterback anymore, if they don't trust you as a captain anymore, like you're pretty much done. There's not really any coming back from that. It's way too hard to regain an entire group of individuals' trust. But yeah, there's a lot more to it than just going out there and what the average person sees happening on a game.
Yeah. Um, I think my biggest takeaway from that was just how emotionless and robotic you played on the field is after your little spurt after cleaning the guy's clock, that you said your reaction was, oh, my teammate just scored, I'm supposed to go down there and celebrate, like it's part of the play.
It is. It is. You have to go celebrate with your teammates if they score. It's like if you don't, it's like frowned upon. It
Yeah.
looks like you don't. It looks like you don't care. It's like you're walking off because either you're not the one that scored or you're not happy for them. It's a bad look if you aren't like trying to celebrate when somebody on your team scores.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Like for receivers, we're supposed to go down to that end zone like meet them.
Hmm.
Like linemen, I don't know, like the really happy ones they run down there too. But like I'm sure you guys like uh high five and like cheer and come off the sideline or something. But if you just like walk off the field without looking for like other people to go celebrate with, it's a really bad look. And
Yeah.
like that was really like taught to us when we played. So now when I see it happening, there's a play earlier this year where I saw us score and one of our receivers just walked off the field, and it just like that it just like irked me because maybe it doesn't mean anything, but it was just so ingrained into us that you have to go celebrate, like go give your teammate a high five kind of thing that it's not like the NFL where you got to go jump up into the stands and do a group celebration, but it's being excited for the team, being excited for your teammate, and it was just a bad look if you don't.
Yeah, no, I totally get that and I understand. It's just the other side of the fence of, I'm much more of an emotional guy. When I'm high, I'm high. So it's the, I would look at it as I get to go down and celebrate because I want to go celebrate because we just
Yeah,
scored.
and normally that I was that guy,
Mm,
but this time for whatever reason I got so caught up in that my first thought was I thought I was going to get yelled at for not going and celebrating. Like I remember like they talked about it in film the next day,
mm,
and they're like, "Oh, watch Antonello here," and I was like, "Shit." I thought like that I was gonna get yelled at for it. No,
Yeah.
instead they threw me a bottle of syrup and they told me I gotta, they're like, here's for your pancake. And like that I was getting congratulated for it. But I was like genuinely concerned that I was gonna get yelled at for being a bad example, even though, I probably only celebrated for half a second.
Mm.
It was like a quick fist bump. One of the other receivers was right over there, so like we high fived real quick, and then I was like, ah shit, and then we ran down to the end zone. But yeah, still like the next day, I thought I was getting yelled at for it.
God, what a story. This is why I love this shit. And, so other people can hear this and understand as well. Like, this is the kind of stuff that, is outside the X's and O's and watching the game. And like I said, you can understand this stuff, from a schematic point of view and watching it all you want. But there is a difference between having played it and not having played it. And I'm not like attacking. I mentioned it was the Tiger Mom, a couple Tiger Moms that said it, and I'm not attacking them. It's just kind of the more general thought because you do see people plenty elsewhere that just spout off like they know what they're talking about and they have just zero idea. And, if you can just come from that place of understanding of, I really don't completely understand where I'm coming from with this take. I know enough that I can know what I'm watching and know what I'm talking about, but there is a metric shit ton outside of the Friday nights or the Saturday afternoons or the Sunday all day stuff at this point that you just will never understand it if you never actually played the game.
Yeah, and I mean you can't expect them to,
Right.
right? I mean, there's plenty of people that did play the game and they have no clue what they're talking about either. So, it's like, oh, back in my day we ran this one play and it worked every time. Like why we should run this more often. And it's just like it doesn't really work that way. Like I don't try to talk too much about like what we ran.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do, it's usually a negative when I talk about what we ran. But it's because we were taught very specifics. Like I'd probably say quarterbacks have the upper edge on being able to talk football because even like on the teams where they don't teach you everything,
Mm-hmm.
the quarterback still has to learn the most. So, um, like there could be any random guy that played when we were in high school. It's like, oh, I know I was supposed to run a curl when they called this play. Okay, but you don't understand football. You understand you were supposed to run that route. So, like, at least the quarterback knows the concepts, even if he wasn't taught what they were, how to, why we're calling them, what defenses they work against. Like, at least he knows multiple players' positions at once.
Mm.
Um, but there's plenty of people that know X's and O's really well without ever playing. There's plenty of people that played and don't know X's and O's at all, and that's okay. But yeah, the actual mentality of having to go through the football process is something you can never pick up without actually doing it.
Yeah. You just reminded me, me and my dad will talk ball every so often, and he graduated, and his senior season was in 1974. So it's like I'll be showing him stuff, and like this is a lot of the stuff they're doing nowadays, and then he'll just take the paper and draw up like a wing T QB sweep where the quarterback pitches the ball out, and he's like, yeah, you see the quarterback here, he actually gets out front as a lead blocker. And it's like, Midge, I'm trying to teach you this stuff, but you just are not grasping anything. And then there's times where it's like, now when we go and watch the games, it's usually you and me sitting up on the cheap seats because we can actually see a lot what's going on. But I, grew up watching it in like row F, section 4 with my dad, where you can't really so much see everything that's going on, but you can hear the pads cracking a little more, but you can still see some stuff. And it was in 2021 it was like one of the last games before I deployed. We were playing whatever not great team, and the quarterback throws a hole shot down the sideline against basically cover 2, and I think he made it, like, he completed the pass that time, and Midge made a comment like, oh, that's getting picked off next time, just seeing how the ball was in the air. And, he has no idea what coverages we're running, how they work, what kind of route concepts. But, lo and behold, they come out the next series, try that same play again, and Brawley comes up over the top as the, high guy in the zone coverage, picks it off, returns it for a pick six. And it's like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, he might not understand the X's and O's, but he's, besides the fact that he's told me plenty of war stories that are just, football locker room stuff, like he can still watch it and understand a lot of what's going on, even if he doesn't understand the X's and O's of what's going on.
Yeah, so that just reminded me, and I don't know if what I'm about to say, and I'm gonna keep it really short, if this is like related to what you're also were reading, it could be two completely different things. But without getting into the details of it, I also saw a lot of comments about people saying, that's not what it was like when I was a kid. Or that's not right. This isn't right. And it's like, you have no clue what you're talking about, do you? It's like, I can guarantee you, oh, I heard that, the kids were like horsing around, on the sideline, or they're horsing around in the locker room, or they're horsing around in study hall. And they're like, oh man, the kids weren't like that when I was in school. So yes, they were. I can guarantee you, without being there, that every single class over the last, like, how long ever, if you told me the kids didn't horse around on Paul Brown this year, I believe you. But after Paul Brown, if you're alive, kids were messing around when you were in high school. That's the way it was. The issue is that they don't understand it because it like doesn't go public. It was like you messed around. You fought in the locker room. You know how many moms would probably lose their mind if they heard that like kids used to fight in the locker room? Either real fight, play fight, wrestling, MMA. That just happens. That happens in every locker room across the country. They want to pretend like it's not happening. They're like, oh no, my little Billy comes home, and that never happened when Billy was in school. Yeah, yes, it did. Wait for Billy to grow up a couple more years, and then go ask him to tell you the funny stories about what happened.
Yeah,
like this stuff has happened forever, and if you don't think it happened, you just weren't there.
Mm-hmm. You're either looking back on it with rose-colored glasses and the whole back in my day thing, and you're curmudgeon at this point. You don't want to admit it. You just have, a stick up your ass, or you're just in denial about it. And yeah, either little Billy has a lot of fun stories he's going to tell you in 10 years, or he was a nerd and had no friends. There's really no in between there. We could probably sit here and have like a 5-hour podcast telling everything that happened in the locker room during our time, and we would have people kicking down our door, I don't have words for like thinking back on it and some of the shit we were doing then, because that just happens in locker rooms. That happens when you get a bunch of 15 to 18-year-olds in a room. You make them just go through hell all day every day for all summer long, and then once school starts, you make them sit still for 7 hours and then go tell them to beat the shit out of each other and expect nothing bad to happen. They're not going to try and find some release of anything. They're not going to try and have fun. And whatever however the kids are having fun these days, every kid ever has gone through this same bullshit. And to sit back and say, oh, we didn't do that, or that doesn't happen, or this, that, and the other is just so totally divorced from reality, and the mental gymnastics you have to go through is honestly kind of astounding at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was just so much that happened, none of it ever like serious enough that it became a thing, right? There's plenty of times where the coaches like yelled at us to knock it off, but like it was never a thing. Right, it's a bunch of kids being kids, having fun. And I remember the one year like you said, you're in school all day, and then you go to football practice, and like as you get towards the end of the year, back then, we were practicing in the indoor because it's colder weather. Um, and they would do like an hour long film session before practice. But film was only for the priority guys, starters, people that rotate in, the people that needed to be there. Everybody else just wasted space. They kicked us out and told us to go down to the indoor, and you just hang out in the indoor for an hour, unsupervised. And the only reason they did that is because we were so loud horsing around in the locker room, it was disrupting film. So then they told us to just go down to the indoor and wait for practice to start. Well, we started, playing a various different types of horsing around games. And it got to the point where these games that the moms would probably think are so dangerous or wrong or whatever, the games became so fun that we had starters skipping film to try and come join the game in the indoor. And then the coaches would have to come find them in the indoor, grab them, take them back up to the locker room to go watch film. But they're like, "Oh, I got 10 minutes of I got 10 minutes of horsing around." Like it's such a fun environment that tensions get high. Not to say that there weren't any moments where, you thought something could, explode, but 99% of the time it's kids having fun. And really what ruins it are the adults. I truly believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that little Billy is having fun messing around. And then as soon as he gets caught, he has to pretend like he wasn't part of it to his mom. He has to pretend like he wasn't enjoying it. He has to pretend like he's a victim. And then it's like in reality, this has been going on every day and he loved it. And if he didn't get caught, he would keep doing it tomorrow. He's like, "No, mom, I promise. I didn't mean to put Johnny in the locker, lock him in a locker." Like, yes, you did mean to lock him in a locker. And like next week, he's probably going to lock you in a locker. That's just what happens. But the one time you get caught being in a locker, now you have to explain to your mom that you got bullied. And it's like, that's not, parents need to stay out of it, right?
Yep.
There's one thing to like be mindful of your kid, and then there's another to like be interrupting what is just a natural occasion. And I don't know how you do that because parents, they never get told the truth.
Never.
Yeah. Billy's never telling his mom, "Oh, we were just messing around, having fun. It's not as bad as it sounds." And it's like, well, yeah, but yes, if you weren't there, you don't understand. But don't be that delusional person that said this kind of stuff didn't happen when you were in school, because it did. Whatever you're referring to, top to bottom, it happened.
Yep. Oh, this one just that reminded me of, if you want to talk about, this one will be very short and then we can keep the conversation moving, but it's a very, humans have been the same for forever. My barber, old barber, he graduated high school in 1945, right? And their, senior trip, it was just going out to some guy's cabin on a lake and just everybody partying, drinking, having a good time. Back in the day when they didn't do this kind of thing. And he said at one point there was a very nice, friendly young lady that there was a line outside her door for most of the evening. And I'll let anybody else fill in the blanks, but just kind of, putting the cap on, kids, high schoolers have been the same since forever. Everyone's done dumb shit. Yeah, as a parent, you're looking at it as a different perspective, but you got to let your kids have fun. Maybe tell your daughter the line outside the door is not probably the best thing, but in a football locker room, most of the shit is fun and harmless and on the grand scheme of things, and just shouldn't be really commented on at all. Especially now that, everybody thinks they can just stand on a soapbox because people can read their profile, people can hop online, and everybody in the world can see what they have to say, so they think it's important. But just because you have a soapbox and like to start drama doesn't mean it's worth reading, I guess is my point. And yes, I see your screen messing up, glitching up for some reason, and we'll kick it over to film and off air in between now and film, figure out what the hell's going on with that. All right, trying to keep this film sesh short and sweet. Considering Gamble had the third most rushing yards in a single game in Massillon history, we'll just let his highlights roll and we can comment on that as we go. So here, just a little power left. Same thing we've been running the last since Coach Moore got here and a lot longer before that. God, what are these backside backers even doing? Oh. The old either don't need to block or reading the backside end against a 7-man box running power with 6 guys. So you just have the backside tackle climb to the backside, the far backside linebacker. Your tackle guard double team up to the mic. Your backside guards wrapping for the play side backer. This is how you draw it up, folks. Make a nice little move. Let him be an athlete. A lot of plays like this, just basically, let's see. Shotgun, strong eye formation, ISO. And then Gamble shows you why he's a dude in the open field. I want to get your take on this one because it's... So the play we're running, you have 4 wide receiver personnel, 2x2. Right guard wraps up for the left side inside linebacker. Left tackle just kicks out the end. You have your right guard and center backs just block back, and your backside tackle or your right tackle gap hinge, and you're running it against a 6.5-man box with 5 blockers. And we still get a touchdown out of this. You draw this up on the whiteboard, advantage defense, but Gamble just makes a nice little nifty move, takes advantage of, let's call them some less than stellar athletes. And we get 6 points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it's designed to split the backers, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So
you're basically, when you're drawing this up, more or less, running back should be cutting either inside or outside the pulling guard's block right there. But I think he had a lot of success hitting that backside A gap. Just like that.
yeah, no, they just go out there and be a dude.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta let your dudes be dudes. Yeah, just same thing. ISO. Defense collapses in. He finds a hole and another 6 points.
You go back to that one
Yes.
from the start.
All right, what are we looking at?
I was just trying to see if Carter was on the line or not.
Nah,
I couldn't
Carter's
see what his hand motion was right as the camera started, but
yeah, ball's on the 34. He's got his foot just behind the 35.
well, I mean, yeah, so does the tight end though.
Yeah, but he's lined up with the tackle. This play, no, I don't know. Really cool play. A little bit of misdirection using our backs. We're basically running single back power to the offensive right with the inline tight end taking the kick out block. You got your left guard is going to wrap for the backside or wrap for the play side linebacker. Apparently, I can't talk anymore. But you have your fullback position guy, even though he's a running back, lined up as like a weak eye formation back, and he climbs up, and basically it looks, if you're just reading the backs, it almost looks like ISO left, but really it's power right. So you get a little misdirection in there, get the defense messing with their keys a little bit. And obviously shows his open field speed. So it's basically the same power play we started this off with, except now you have an additional back in the backfield who can kick out that backside end so you don't have to read him. And you're also giving a false key of, oh, this guy's been lead blocking. He's follow him to the running back all night. Nope, he is the opposite side of that play.
Doesn't really take on the blocker very well.
Well, he's a running back. I can forgive him.
Still got a block.
Huh?
But he still got a block.
Yeah, you pretty boys out there, you don't like blocking much. Just a little weak outside zone left. Here, I'm assuming this came after that power play we just talked about. Now you actually run it right behind the your lead blocking fullback, away from the tight end. When we get these I formation looks, we do have a pretty decent run menu out of them that I've seen. Putting guys in positions to take advantage of a defense that's just in an absolute pretzel.
I can't just like stop watching our fullback. Ever since watching that first play where he missed his block, I've just been watching him every time after that. And
just going up and catching the guy and playing patty cake rather than,
yeah, so I mean, the first one he missed his block. The second one he went up and tried catching the guy. The third one he kind of just like lingers in space just to get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then this fourth one he catches the guy again also.
Yeah.
The goal isn't just to be man on with somebody. The goal is to move them out of the way.
Well, doesn't look like anybody got moved out of the way, but Gamble does a good job of I heard the term for it, and it's just beautiful, riding the wave of your blockers, where it's basically a slow cut backside.
Yeah.
Defense isn't really giving up, or offense isn't really giving up any penetration to the defense. So he's just kind of shuffling along that wall, finds his lane, and turns it on for 6.
Did Tolles hurt himself trying to juke the corner there?
Looks like it.
Yeah, just kind of slipped in the turf a little bit.
Hey, that turf monster will get you when you're least expecting it, man.
No, that's very true.
But that's all we got for Phil.
Put your mouthpiece in, kid.
That's all we got for.
If I can tell from here,
Yeah.
if I can tell from here, your mouthpiece is out. Not good.
Wait. So who doesn't have their mouthpiece in?
Coles.
Oh.
But I mean, listen, I know it's really cool and fancy, and all the NFL guys, they don't wear their mouthpiece,
Mm.
but it's there for a reason. I just don't think a lot of it's not just kids. I mean, athletes of all ages don't understand why you have a mouthpiece in.
Yeah. I mean,
It's to protect your brain from rattling.
Nobody ever really told me. I don't know if they like told you growing up. I always thought it was just there to, protect the teeth. And then, you grow up, find out later after you're not playing contact sports anymore that it's a concussion prevention tool, not a teeth protection tool.
Yeah, it absorbs the shock in your jawbone from rattling up into your head.
So,
or vice versa, starting from your head down into your jawbone and back or something. I mean, whatever. It's there to absorb the shock of getting hit.
Nah, man, it's there to look cool dangling from your face mask. Was it?
Yeah. So I mean, you either don't wear it at all, which is bad, or you only wear it when you think you're going to get the ball.
In which case, that's a tell.
I mean, that's bad because it's a giveaway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone should just wear their mouthpiece. I understand like NFL quarterbacks not wanting to do it because they're talking so much, and you do so many hard counts. Talk, put your mouthpiece in, fake a hard count, take it back out, do your like I get it. It sucks, but I mean, it really is there for a reason.
I mean, so going back to that story of almost getting in a fight with the kid from St. Ed's my junior year, that was the last day I wore a mouthpiece attached to my helmet because when he ripped my helmet off, it was swinging around, and if I didn't spit it out, the helmet would have fully swung around and smacked me in the head and probably gave me a concussion. And I know that because immediately after that play, I got subbed out. And he did the exact same thing to the next kid who did not spit out his mouthpiece and actually got a concussion from his helmet smacking him in the temple. So if you're telling me you don't want to wear a mouthpiece because you think it's going to give you a concussion, I get it, but cut it off the face mask. Don't wear it there. Or just be like that kid in college football last year who had two mouthpieces of different colors on his dangling off his helmet every play, and I think he wore a third unattached one in his mouth at the same time. Style of the times, brother. Style of the times. So, have any other comments, concerns, talking points at all for this Texas team before we roll into Warren?
Nope.
Wonderful. Defense pitched a shutout, but, fairly common for Massillon defenses to be good as of late, so not much to really show there. So with that, I snagged the Warren quarterbacks highlights from the Mooney game they played, I think it was last week. And he is pretty much the guy that, stirs the soup there. So let's check him out. For some reason, just started very, middle of the play. But what amounts to a weird mesh concept with a wheel from the running back out of the backfield, which they found a little bit of success with this game. And even at the D1 college level, some teams still can't figure out how to cover properly. I don't know if this is a scramble or a actual QB draw, but dude can throw it a little bit, but he is absolutely a threat with the ball in his hands. And plays a little bit of outside linebacker to boot.
Mm,
Yeah, not often seen position combination, but when you're Warren, you got to do what you got to do.
yeah, I mean, I get it, I guess, but
Here, exact same play, just a little wheel mesh. They didn't want to cover it the first time, didn't want to cover it the second time. I like this one. Nice and dangerous. Little counter tray action. So you have your left guard, left tackle pulling to block counter front side. But since it's a 5-man box, you don't have anybody to block the end. So what do? You read him. And when he crashes down following the pulls and, linebacker reading their keys, quarterback can pull it and take off up the edge for 6. But one thing very much of note here is that that left guard will absolutely tell you when he's pulling on any sort of run plays. Want me to run through it again, or are we good?
we can talk about it when we break down. Yeah, we're good.
All right, sounds good. We'll get on out of film and get into our Warren preview. All right, we got a 6-2 Warren team coming in. Dropped a tough one in their opener to a current 6-2 McKinley, 26-19. Rattled off, let's see, 1, 2, 3 wins against Bookdale, Perry, and St. V, which they shut out St. V. Then they themselves were shut out by a 7-1 Youngstown Ursuline, 35-0. And then beat Solon, Boardman, and Cardinal Mooney, which we just watched. That last one ended 20-6. So, a pretty decent Warren team. First one we've seen in a while, honestly. They're coming in the number 21 ranked D2 team in Ohio, and a nice even round 1,250 in the United States, which is, there's a comma in the number, but they're still ranked nationally, so that's something at least. So with that, let's jump into their offense.
Yep. So finally, an offensive line that is not filled with behemoths.
Also, the first thing that struck me.
5'11", 225, 6'1", 240, 5'11", 250, 6'2", 265, 6'4", 245. So, towering over what was the offensive line my senior year in high school, but by far the smallest one we've seen all year.
Well, I think we had what?
Is he okay?
I think we had 3 guys under 200 pounds on the offensive line at one point.
Hey, shut up. We won for half a year. We had a left tackle that was 185 pounds with 2 broken hands wearing casts. He had casts on both hands, and he's 185 pounds as our left tackle.
I mean, to his credit, he was
and had never played offensive line before.
I was going to say he was a converted tight end, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you got one club on, we might be able to make it work as an inline blocker type tight end. 2 clubs, it's sorry, kid. We gotta.
I don't think he held very much.
Would be kind of hard to.
Yeah, well.
I mean, if I have a kid walking into my office is with a club on each hand, I'm pulling out the Pass Pro Teach tape from 1970, where you had to
block him with your forearms.
Yeah, you had to chicken wing it. There was no holding it all. I couldn't use your hands one bit. But I mean, by God, did he make it work? And by make it work, I mean he played there.
Yeah. So they're smaller than the other lines we played, and they're also not the best offensive line we faced this year either. surprise to nobody. They have a few athletes on this team.
Shocker.
Warren's always known for having a couple good skill players roaming around, and that stays consistent with this team. They have four receivers that they use. Three of them are seniors. 5'9", 165, 5'10", 165, 5'10", 155, 6 foot 145. So not a big group of receivers, but they have some speed and they can be dangerous with the ball in their hands. Their running back is a senior, 5'10", 200 pounds.
B.J. Coleman.
But
that is a great running back name. If he's like a hard-nosed downhill guy, you don't get better than that. B.J. Coleman, number 2. I could use a little more like beef in the number, maybe like a 33 or something like that. Give me a little more power backy number on there. But B.J. Coleman, that's like an 8.5 out of 10 name right there.
But the offense runs through this guy, the quarterback, senior, 6'5", 230. He has offers all over the place. He has an offer to Penn State. I saw that he just picked up an offer to Florida State.
Damn.
Like within the last week or two, something like that.
I am fairly certain he could step in and be a better quarterback than what they have currently.
But we just watched the film of him. Really good athlete. Really good runner. He does also throw a pretty decent ball from the limited pass plays that we saw on film. But while we were watching it, and to be honest, that was my first time watching him, right? Actually watching film of him. But I got a person that he reminds me of.
Oh.
A player, a similar type player. So first, let me ask you.
Yeah.
If I had to force you to pick a comp, and this could be a high school comp, a college comp, an NFL comp, whatever. Just, is there anybody that this guy reminds you of?
The compilation and like name brand version of every Warren quarterback we've seen short of Lynn Bowden.
Okay, he reminds me of one very specific person.
Can you give me a hint?
I will give you a hint. It's not this guy.
For anybody audio only, Rob is holding up his signed Troy Smith jersey, also framed. So not Troy Smith, huh?
Not Troy Smith.
All right, so not Troy Smith, but I'm assuming another Ohio State quarterback. Oh God.
I'll give you another hint.
Okay.
This kid, the one we're talking about for Warren, Chaz Coleman, he is 6'5", 230.
He's got a little more juice to him than 12 gauge, don't you think?
I don't have my 12 gauge jersey in here. No, yes, I'm not referring to Cardell Jones either.
All right,
very athletic, but tall, runs like a gazelle, but can throw a decent ball.
You going with the Braxton Miller comp, huh?
No.
Damn it.
I'm very much thinking of Terrell Pryor.
Got it. See, I'm bad with the player comps because I didn't start paying it. I watched football my whole life, but I didn't start paying attention to it like an absolute nerd until I was probably 19 or 20. So I missed the, prime Terrell Pryor years. But yeah, you know what? I can kind of see it in so much as similar build, general profile.
Yeah, I mean, just watching this film, that's what I was thinking of. I didn't know what his height was, but you could tell he's
Mhm.
tall. Um, but just a tall, but he's got some juice to him. He's kind of electric, right? And threw a decent ball. I mean, the whole time I was just going, man, this reminds me of like a Terrell Pryor right here.
All right. I could kind of see it if I squint and try and look back at my memories of the Terrell Pryor highlights I've seen on Facebook. I just don't remember him good enough to like say that's a good compare. I to have any opinion on the comparison, I guess. But
All right. So, I mean, it was a little while ago. I'll give you that. And Terrell Pryor at the time was the highest rated high school player Ohio State had ever signed. So, I mean, like, he was a pretty big deal.
yeah,
And I'm not saying this guy is that level. I mean, obviously, he's really good. He's got offers to Penn State, Florida State, a bunch of, big time teams. He's obviously really
mm,
good. I don't think he's highest rated player in the country in that likes. But I'm just saying, from a pure watching him run, seeing a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", but can run with a little bit of wiggle to
mm.
it,
So
just having the longer bodied quarterback that can get out in space.
yeah, no, I can see that. My question was, you know, only saw two snaps of him on defense, but seeing the frame, the build on him, and the athleticism, I th- I'm pretty sure the offer is for linebacker, like edge guy, rather than quarterback. So, have you seen
Sure.
anything about what they're offering him for specifically?
No, but I'm sure I could figure out pretty quick.
Yeah, because I mean, just super aggressive off the edge. Made a couple good plays. The one just chasing down from the backside. I don't know if that was a read or not, or if it was like the old high school, like we don't have to block the edge guy on a stretch going away from him, so we're not going to. But I thought he did a really good job of like keeping his rush wide enough that he could have played the QB and still managed to chase down the run and make the tackle in the backfield like he did. Uh, the one highlight we saw in film room was the only film I've watched of him so far. I mean, I'm gonna be honest and say kind of sleepwalking into this episode in general, but we've seen Warren enough can more or less speak on what they do. But having seen that and seeing his profile, this one might be shaping up to be a little bit of a fun one Friday night. You know, with as much as this team like kind of reminds me of the 21 team. I mean, we're obviously better all around, but just in a weird way that I can't quite put my finger on. Yeah, that was the shootout game with Warren, and I'm kind of hoping for that on Friday night. And I'm all.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fun to watch a good
Mm,
game, that's for sure. So everything just has him listed as an athlete. His Twitter profile says QB/athlete.
okay,
They keep talking about what his basketball stats are and all these things.
interesting.
But I did see he's got offers like all over the place: Michigan State, Mizzou, Florida State, Illinois, Kentucky.
Damn.
There are just a slew of offers. So,
Uh,
I mean,
oh, Kentucky hoping they get their next Lynn Bowden.
well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yes, but I'm hoping. I'm guessing they're hoping for more than what they got from Lynn Bowden.
Yeah, but he was at least a fun player when they had to like put him in as an emergency QB after their like fourth quarterback went down with injury, and then they're like, okay, we actually have something here. And then the offense got like really fun to watch sometimes. Obviously, they were a little more down.
Yeah, I mean, he was just an electric
Mhm.
player, and they essentially had him running a wildcat.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's amazing watching him make SEC defenders miss consistently. Like it was
Mhm.
fun, but that was pretty much his stretch of career.
Yeah.
he played some receiver. He did end up going to the NFL. He played on a couple NFL teams, but at the end of the day, he just didn't really have the ability to be a true receiver at that
Hmm.
level. His route running combined with speed just wasn't there to sustain a NFL career. But yeah, just an absolute freak of nature with the ball in his hands. If they had kickoffs back then, like maybe he'd still have a job. But
Mm. That happens quite often. It kind of is what it is, but yeah, no, he's definitely he's the straw that stirs the sink in that off the drink in that
there
offense.
you
Yep,
go.
nailed it. Uh, One interesting thing to note was that they'll put him in at wide receiver sometimes and bring up a backup QB in to throw the ball a
Mhm.
little bit. So, I was actually flashing back to not today, a couple days ago to when we first started the podcast, and our talking point for a few years on Warren was always, they have a basketball coach coaching the football team. And I don't know if they ever replaced him or not, or if he's still there and just like the head coach now. But I would say, 8 years in at this point, that's no longer really a talking point, nor should it be. And at least with how they like to use him and really, make him the centerpiece of their offense and showcase what he can do, they're not just sticking an athlete out there and saying, go make a play, kid. They do run the offense through him. They built something around him. And I think that does say a lot to what they're at least trying to put on the field now at Warren, and how it is a step above what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean they have a great support system there. When it comes to the athletic program, they have a new facility. I know McDaniels was up there working with them in the off season. I'm sure he still like kind of has a touch into what they do and has some advice for them. Um, you have
Mm-hmm.
Shepis is
Athletic director.
at
Yeah.
Warren,
Yep.
right? Okay, so he was like Youngstown school district or something ahead of. I don't know, but he was, yes. I mean, he's the new athletic director at Warren. So, I mean, obviously he has an extensive football background. He's retired from coaching now, but there's plenty of resources there for him to pull from, the coaching staff to pull from. So, yeah, it makes sense that they should be getting better. And hopefully they're able to kind of turn the program around and get back to when they were consistently a strong team. They have a lot of athletes. It looks like they still probably need to work on their line play on both sides of the ball a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But you know, hey, it looks like they're kind of trending in the right direction here after going through that slippage of switching their coaches around. Whenever that was.
Yeah. They are our Massillon's second most historic rival. We've played them like what, 75, 85 times now at this point. Um, and it was like kind of sad a little bit. I know we've been a cut above not just them, but most of the Northeast Ohio teams as of late, the last 5, 7 years. But to see kind of what they were in the last few of like you could just sleepwalk into the game and cruise to a 42 a 45 to 6 win was a little disheartening. So to see them on the upswing a little bit, and I'm hoping at least that they give us a game that it kind of it brings the joy back into the game a little bit more than just a normal Massillon game on a Friday night. It's you have that history there. You have all the stuff that goes into it now with all like the Massillon and Canton connections up at Warren, and it it just brings a little extra juice to the game on Friday night that makes the
Mhm.
Massillon games that much more fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that most of the Ohio teams we've been playing over the last how few years, the only games that you have that personal connection to, the team ends up not being any good.
Hmm.
And it really just deflates the balloon of what should be a, fun, old school, you know, same geographic region type of game. But hopefully they can kind of start putting things together and building up the program again. But again, they gotta start working up front with their offense and now their defensive line. Because I mean their defensive line, 6'1", 240, 6'2", 265, 6', 190, and then a rotational player that is 6', 185.
You got 52, 56, 11, and 7 up front. Yeah, we need to work on that first. We've seen some bad defensive line number groups this season. This one might take the cake for me. That's 52 and 56. That's like, maybe you're an on-ball linebacker, walk down on the line. My nose guard should not be number 56. My D end and defensive tackle should not be 52 and 11. That's bad. Bad, bad, bad. Dirty. I don't like it. Let's change this, please.
All right, well, it's only going to get better. Getting into the linebackers, their quarterback plays one outside linebacker, 6'5", 230. And then they go 6', 200, 5'9", 195, 5'11", 170, and just the perfect numbers to match.
You know what? The dude is wearing number 1. I can look past that. That's fine. Then you got 320 and 0 for the rest of your linebacking core. Ew. Ooey, ooey, ooh. Ooey, ooh, ick. I don't like it.
It's a very modern, speed, fast, quick defense.
Don't care. No. Give me 52 and 56 up the middle in my linebacking core. Get those defensive linemen in the 90s, and we need to do something about this. Number 1 and number 0 as your outside guys. Okay, I can live with that. We're getting a little more fast on defense, more modern day football. Sure, I can live with it. 1, 3, 20, and 0. Ick. No.
What what's the chances that number 3 wears a neck roll?
You can't wear a single-digit jersey and a neck roll at the same time. If that happens, you're off my team. Don't care. I don't care if you're an absolute stud. Get him out of here.
Only if they're a middle back. What if they're an outside backer?
Outside backers should not be wearing neck rolls. You're playing in space, kid. Get that thing off you.
Okay, but what if you're like you're an on the line like Sean Crable, I think had a little bit of neck paddage back in the day.
Back in the day, he was taking on kickout blocks for 95% of his job because he was playing offenses that had nothing but tight ends and fullbacks in them. That is fine. And he was an absolute stud. If you're an absolute stud and you are playing on the line doing the dirty work, sure. Nowadays, you're facing spread offenses. You're playing in space. No, you're either you want the neck roll. You're playing inside with 53 on your chest. You want to stay outside. All right, lose the neck roll, kid, and we got to talk about the number situation. You can't wear 0 if you're just an average Joe. That 0 is also reserved for the dudes. We have seen that plenty this year. Unless you're a stud, you're not wearing 0.
All right, let's move on to the safeties. 5'9", 165, 5'11", 160. So not the biggest guys in the world. Numbers 21 and 17. I mean, I'm not crazy about 17, like as in a number just in general, but I mean, does it fit the bill, 21 and 17?
17 strikes me as a quarterback number, not
It's a backup quarterback. Yeah.
That's a backup QB number. 21 and 17, I'm not crazy about. But I just like the fact that we finally got to a position group that I don't just have a knee-jerk reaction to their numbers, so I'm going to have to live with it.
Okay. Corners, 5'10", 165, 5'10", 155. So not a whole lot of size there either. Numbers 9 and 10.
At least they're not playing next to each other. I know they show up next to each other on like the depth chart as who's playing corner, but I just can't have like sequential numbers near each other on the football field. So this one gets a pass. Um, Matthew Richardson sounds like an accountant, and that's not who I want out there covering deep posts.
Yeah.
I just thoroughly enjoy when I can say something very matter of fact and leaves you, not speechless. I can see you have stuff you want to say, but like you just can't think of anything in the moment. So just that like ear-piercing silence that at this point I can hear what it's going to sound like when somebody else listens to it, that I'm just doing the best not to piss my pants laughing right now.
Well, I was trying to like lead you into saying the other corner's name without just asking you to say the other corner's name.
Ares Coleman Bay.
I'd love to like correct you, but that's about as close as I can get. Also,
Airiz. I mean, if you got a better pronunciation than Ares, I'm all ears. But his name literally has Riz in it, so he's got to have some kind of personality there. And the fact that I have a hard time pronouncing the first name and a hyphenated last name, I'm pretty confident in his abilities as a corner.
yeah, I mean the names for corners are a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you always want a corner with an obscure name. Um, not a lot of John Smiths out there playing corner. Um, it's like Matthew Richardson.
Yeah.
He very well could be the best player on the team, and it's just like, nah, can he play safety maybe? Like sounds like a better fit for you,
Yeah.
buddy.
No, Matthew Richardson is the guy I have doing my taxes. That's not who I want covering a go route. But with Coleman Bay out there, I think he can cover up some boo boos. So
hmm
maybe put the guy you don't like it. Take your third or fourth receiver, throw him out there on that side. Just throw out the tax man the rest of the night.
I know, but like tax names are for safeties,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like John Johnson, Harrison Smith, Bob Sanders, John Lynch.
yeah. Either
Like those are your safeties.
may.
Your
Mhm.
corners are not Bob Sanders.
No, I. The more I think about it, the more I am actually happy with their numbers, with the single digits, because with the way the rest of this defense is numbered, I wouldn't be surprised if Matthew Richardson just came trotting out in number 45. In which case, I would just be. I don't care what the rest of my game plan is. That's going in the trash. I am throwing at him all night. Like, it's a good thing Marlon Humphreys was at is still kinda and at least was an absolute dude in the NFL at one point, because number 44 on a corner is just ugly. So you got to have some talent to back that aesthetic mismatch up. And I think Friday night we're going to find out if Mr. Richardson actually has that or not.
Yeah, he is only a sophomore, so maybe we'll come back to it in a year or two.
Yeah, if he comes out with like 5 sweatbands on one arm, I'm going to come around on the kid. But I
Yeah.
need I need a whole lot of corner, aesthetic bullshit going on to get over the name.
hmm
But I guess we can touch on what they actually run. Yeah, while we're still on the defense side of the ball, 3-4 odd front. They like to keep their quarterback walked up on the line as a rush end, and a lot of cover four behind it. That seems to be their base defense, which not unfamiliar considering it's our own base defense. It's a nice little different flavor of our base. defense, I would say, is probably the best way to put it. And then the offensive side of the ball, like we said, offense runs through the quarterback, whole lot of read game, whole lot of straight quarterback runs. I think there's something like 70% run to pass. They're really trying to suck the defense up, get within that, 10, 8 yards and try and go bombs way over your head. But it's not something they're going to force like the team we saw come in last week. They're definitely going to pick and choose their shots a lot more. And, defense, you're running that cover 4 stuff. You're trying to keep everything in front of you, try and spill the runs outside, make you go east-west and try and rally up, make a play, and buck up in the red zone. But we've been a pretty good red zone offense for the last however many years. And, even though it's a new offense, we haven't really faltered on when we get down in scoring position, leaving points on the board. So I like the matchup. I'm hoping for some points. Not that I want to see the defense do bad, but a lot of offense is fun to watch sometimes. And fortunately, our defense hasn't given us many of those games over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, just looking for a fun game in general. We've had enough of these, kind of like blowout wins. Really, it's just like back to back, which is making me say that. We've had some good games this year also. Toughest strength of schedule in the state. Massillon has. So we've had some good games, but I think after the back to back, blowout games, it would be nice to have a kind of something a little bit more exciting as that buffer going into the big one next week.
Yeah, it's the nail biters we've had. They've been very defense-driven battles, which good defense is fun to watch. I love it. I can appreciate both sides of the ball. I'm not sitting here and saying, like the 7-2 state championship game was bad because not a lot of points scored, but we just haven't seen a good shootout in a while. It's either a defensive struggle ending 21-17, or we're just rolling a team 42-0. So, let me see some points. Let's get the opposite team into the 30s while we're, I don't want to say while we're trying to keep pace because that implies we're losing, but I want to see them trying to and actually keeping pace with our offense doing good out there. So let's try and ring up that scoreboard on Friday night, have ourselves a fun one, maybe a little repeat of the 21 game with a little bit less anxiety from our side of the ball is what I want to see.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So with that, we will roll it right on into spreads, which I'm assuming you have.
I do have some good ones this week. A couple that you're not going to care about, but a couple good ones.
All right.
And I also have a few notes. Let me just read these notes real quick so I know when to chime in with them. Okay. So, first game of the week. We have that team to the north playing that team to the east. Jackson at McKinley. McKinley favored by 13.5.
That team to the north. Yeah, famous nickname for Jackson that we always refer to them as. Do we have any notes on this one?
McKinley has beaten Jackson 17 times in a row.
Well, it's going to be 18, and don't have to think about it twice. Let's go with the pups on this.
Lake at Hoover. Hoover favored by 2.5.
Body of water versus an appliance. Let's go with the body of water.
Did you know that Uniontown's not actually a thing?
Wait, what?
No.
You can't just roll on by that and not expect me to ask questions. Pardon me?
Uniontown is not a thing.
Where'd it come from?
There's Green.
Mm-hmm.
There's Hartville.
Okay.
There's Lake Township.
Okay.
There's Green Township. Different than there's Green and then there's Greensburg. There's no such thing as Uniontown. you can go to Hartville's, government building. You can go to Green and go to City
Yeah.
Hall. Lake Township has a board of trustees or whatever, but there is no such thing as Uniontown.
I did. Okay.
And I'm saying that really confidently for somebody who just heard that a couple years ago and haven't done any research since then.
I mean, you're.
But I'm familiar with the area. My grandparents lived out in Hartville, and I'm pretty familiar with Lake High School, the area around it, Hartville, the area, the space between Lake and Green, like people call it Uniontown, but like it's not a thing.
I okay. I'm just gonna have to accept this.
Okay, I skipped this one, but I already said it. So Northwest at Triway, 4.5 point favorites.
Northwest at Triway. Away game, tough. We'll go Triway.
Perry, who, kind of as we expected, completely flundered after a good start to the year,
Shocker.
is going to Green. And Green is 17.5 point favorites.
As the liberals would say, let's go Green.
Okay. That's the orange and black Green Bulldogs to you. Because Massillon.
Hey, we're all about solar power here, man. Wind turbines and shit.
Tuslaw is heading to Canton South. Canton South, 28.5 point favorites.
That is a lot of points.
It is a lot of points for a team that's not the same without their record-breaking quarterback.
That's way.
But Tuslaw is down bad boys.
Tuslaw down bad boys.
Oh, Tuslaw's down bad boys.
God, 28 points is a lot. Give me Tuslaw to cover, but not in a pretty way.
I mean, it could be 28.
Yeah.
Fairless is heading to Manchester.
Okay.
Which, boo, Manchester.
Why?
Do not like the direction that they went with their program.
I watched you do the math on picking those words, and I can question that off air.
Manchester and the misguided direction of their program are 29.5 point favorites against Fairless.
29.5. That's like more than 28.5, which
it is.
We have previously established as a lot of points. So without really knowing about either team, besides the fact that you don't like whatever particular direction they're going in, give me Fairless to cover.
All right, so now we have two good back-to-back games and spreads here.
All righty.
We have St. Ed's traveling down to play Moeller.
Ooh.
Moeller is favorited.
Okay.
By 16.5.
Holy shit. I know compared to what they normally are, Ed's down bad boys. But that's a lot of points for Ed's to be down. And I don't think they're that down bad.
That's a lot of points to be giving St. Ed's. Now, Moeller's good.
Mm-hmm.
A whole lot of Moeller fans talking a lot of shit online for all of the Massillon Ed's videos. They got all the attention. A lot of Moeller fans talking shit on there about how the best football is down in Moeller. And, if they were only talking about this year, I think it would have made sense. But all of the idiots down there from Cincinnati, which really is in Kentucky to begin with, they were all talking about how everybody knows the best football every year is in Cincinnati. And it's like, no, Northeast Ohio has literally won how many straight D1 and D2 championships. The best football is not in Cincinnati. That's been proven. Maybe this year.
I mean, at least at the NFL level. But we're talking high school, so God, that's a lot of points. I feel like after I make this prediction that Moeller is just gonna dog walk them like 42-6, but give me Eds to win.
Ed's outright.
Yeah, I like Eds outright.
Dogs on the road. I mean, they got to start turning it around, right?
They have to.
They can't have a 4-loss season.
Did we give them their second loss, or was that Glenville?
Yeah.
We gave them their... that's right. Yeah. Oh, my God. This might be a historically bad season if they lose this one. They are playing for all the marbles week 9.
I mean, they could still win the state championship with 4 losses.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Hank's taking Eds to win outright. So let's follow this one up with another good game.
Okay.
We have Cincinnati Winton Woods.
Ooh, yeah, my attention.
Playing at Cincinnati Anderson. So on the most recent AP poll, Winton Woods is the number 3 ranked team in D1.
Damn.
Anderson is the number 3 ranked team in D2.
Damn.
And Anderson is the home team. They're both undefeated, by the way. Anderson is favored by 19 and a half.
Absolutely not. No. This might be the easiest pick of this entire season.
They put up points, man. Remember? That spread, let's throw 80 screens a game offense.
I know they put up points, but Winton Woods has more pride than that. Give me Winton.
Well, they did like lose all of their kids over like a 3-year span. Apparently they're getting them back, but
oh boy.
They went from Mayan Williams to like just being not even having a football program to now they're good again.
Was that not even having a football program? Was that before or after they beat Hoban in 21 when Hoban had a less than stellar quarterback play?
I mean, apparently after that, because I mean they were good when we played them, and then okay, so I guess it was only like a year or two that they were down, but they're back.
I was gonna say, like, they had Mayan Williams and they were down bad, and then they're good again, and it's like, well, they won states like 3 years ago.
Oh, they were down in between that, I think.
Oh God, just until Winton Woods puts together like 5 2-8 seasons, I'm just always gonna look back at that 17 stomping that they gave us and the dogfight we were in with them in 18 and think that they're a good team. So I just vibes tell me they have a better defense than Anderson has seen this season. So yeah, I'm sticking with Winton Woods, but like I really, really, really like that pick.
All right, let's jump into some college games. Run through these here quick. Oregon, 27.5-point favorites at Purdue.
Welcome to the Big Ten. Purdue loves to play spoiler, especially since this game's on Friday night. So coming off of probably the biggest win in Oregon's, 21st century. Give me Purdue to cover. Easy.
Nebraska at Indiana. Indiana 6.5.
Indiana 6.5. I know Dylan Raiola's
Indiana's ranked.
Yeah, Indiana's ranked. Dylan Raiola's been hit or miss. He is a freshman. this is a gotta have it for Nebraska if they want to play with the big boys again. So give me Nebraska.
We have the fraudulent Miami, 4.5 point favorites at Louisville.
4.5. Louisville hasn't done much of anything this year, right?
I'm trying to remember if they just had a big win like a week or two ago, or if that was a big loss.
That
They played spoiler. They played spoiler to one of my bets, but I'm trying to remember if I picked them and they got spoiled, or if they spoiled somebody. It was the week that like every good team lost.
Okay, gotcha. God, give me the refs just handing them these last second bullshit wins is really messing with the math in my head. You know what? Louisville's going to play spoiler in a good way this Saturday, so give me Louisville to win outright.
LSU 3.5 point favorites at Arkansas.
Arkansas,
another spoiler.
Arkansas is apparently a tough team this year, and I still hate everything about Brian Kelly, but I think they just have too much juice for Arkansas and a more complete team than Tennessee had, so give me LSU.
Here's what would probably be a good game. Michigan 3.5 point favorites at Illinois.
Oh, God, Michigan sucks, and I love every part of it. Give me the Fighting Illini in this one to win because Michigan is continuing their backslide into down bad territory.
It's just I and I.
Yeah, sure.
Bama 3.5 point favorites at Tennessee.
I hate everything about this game. A year ago, this was a phenomenal game. And I'm not talking like Tennessee upsetting them. I mean, in general, like both teams' vibes a year ago, like vibe check where they were at. If you took that and gave those vibes to these teams, this would be a good game. Apparently, Alabama is turning into Michigan of the SEC and just backsliding into less than stellar, at least compared to what they were. Tennessee forgets how to play football sometimes. You know what? Give me Bama to come out and stomp their heads in because of the loss last year, and the board needs like some kind of way to save the vibes of this season, and I think this is where it starts.
Georgia 3.5 point dogs at Texas.
Texas good, Georgia not bad. Give me Texas easy.
And Massillon at Warren.
We finally hit the opposing team spread last week, didn't we? Or was that the week before? Was it the Canada one that was a huge gap?
Yeah. Last week, it was pretty close to 50-50, I think.
Gotcha.
And Massillon did not cover.
Yeah, that's it.
Because of a missed extra point. And then we chose not to go for it at the end. Even though we lined up in a regular offensive formation, making it look like we were going for it, we just took it.
I forgot about that. That was weird. I
watched that drive.
Yeah, I forgot. You were in it for that one, buddy.
Take a knee. Take a knee.
Never a man more locked into a football game than someone that's just living or dying by the spread. Massillon minus 23.5. No? Way off?
No.
Way off which way?
I don't know. I mean, I do know, but
Give me, do I need to go up or down?
up.
Oh, God. Massillon minus like 42.
35.5.
You know, I almost said 33 and then just really overcorrected myself just because the vibes on how we have to skew the numbers to get the public to pick one way or another. 33.5, huh? I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, I'm praying that Warren covers that easily. But if I was putting actual money on this, which I'm not and no one is, Massillon covers. And I don't feel happy about saying that. Because I'm rooting for fireworks. And not literal fireworks every time we score, just fireworks on the field. Well, also, yes, when we score, but them too. You get it.
Let me look at something real quick.
Alrighty.
Maybe I'm on the wrong website.
What are we looking for?
Trying to see what yeah, I was looking at the Joel Idol
Oh,
thing,
yeah, what he has us by.
but
Is it not on here?
yeah. No, I didn't see that.
I feel like it should be on there. Plus,
I think I was just on the wrong. That wasn't the top 55. Here we go. Drew Pastor's top 50. Okay,
yeah.
found
All right,
it.
we're good.
It's different person, different website.
All right, remember?
He has us winning by 36.
36. Oh my God.
So, I guess I see where the spreads come from.
It certainly doesn't hurt.
35.5, 36.
Wow. Well, I guess I'll go with the math nerd on this one, who I can appreciate him for what he is because he fully embraces the fact that he's a math nerd, but also just loves the sport of high school football for what it is at the same time. It's classically not something you can think of two things that coexist at the same time, but he is just right there shooting that intersection of that Venn diagram, and I just love the hell out of that. What I'm assuming pencil neck nerd for.
Yeah, but I mean his system it's pretty good. It's pretty accurate. Predicting these types of things. I saw he was taking questions on Twitter a week ago, and somebody asked how he thinks a Massillon versus Ironton or Massillon versus Marion Local would go. And he was like, well, according to my system, Massillon would win by 14 against one of them, win by 19 against the other. But the system always messes up with small schools versus bigger schools in favor of the smaller school. So he's like, the system says 14 and 19, but in reality, every time these things happen, it's a bigger spread than that. So he understands how a system works and when it has its shortcomings, and it apparently it overvalues good small schools too much.
Gotcha. I'm assuming whatever formulas are built in doesn't take into account the small school wins are probably over other small schools.
Well, I think it does. It's just they're so dominant of wins, it can't. There's not enough common opponents to actually figure out what that would be against a bigger school. It's like if you're just beating up all these smaller schools nonstop, it's not like they played somebody that Massillon also played.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, we can kind of get an idea that way. It's like, no, you're just beating up smaller schools that never play the big schools, and um, they're just so dominant nonstop that even though it recognizes they're playing weak competition, it's still hard to compute.
Yeah, that's got to be tough to correct for when the Venn diagram of small school competition and large school competition are two circles that do not intersect at all.
Yeah.
But nah, his website's a good resource if anybody wants to, if you can get a line somewhere and see how that compares and what you think you should or shouldn't take, and it also looking at like strength of schedule, playoff chances to make it, playoff chances for home playoff games, chances like probabilities for how far you will make it in the playoffs, that kind of thing. Pretty nifty little resource. A little too in the numbers for my blood. I need a little more just like pure vibes for my sake, but I understand I'm a little bit of a different cat than probably what he's going after, so still.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting because, um, we're pretty much guaranteed, and we are guaranteed to have one home game in the playoffs. But then after that, as long as we get one win out of the next 2 weeks, there's a 97 or 99% chance that we have two home playoff games.
All right. I like it. But we're looking a little too far ahead of ourselves, kind of getting into the third season of Massillon football in that one, when really I think we can talk a little bit about the second season of Massillon football coming up here in a week and a half. We have the FW Renner and Sons sponsored tailgate, which Max just hit me up about that today. So we have a little bit of a fund for our food we'll be providing. And we were talking about it earlier off air, maybe doing a little something BlackSwarm podcast related at the tailgate. So, Rob, you want to get into that a little bit? That's more your brainchild, your baby.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Part of me makes me want to do this, kind of like, some kind of BlackSwarm production. Whether it is just kind of going around and looking at different tailgates or just overall vibe checks of the entire tailgate and pregame experience, or, doing some Massillon football trivia, maybe giving some prizes out or something. Hopefully I'll have, a batch of shirts ready for McKinley game tailgate. So maybe we could like give away some shirts or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like on one hand, I kind of want to do something like that. On the other hand, it's like we might just end up getting caught up in the tailgate too much to, want to go around doing that kind of stuff. But I think there's some potential here for us to bring a BSP production into the picture.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be too awfully much work. At least on the front end of just, I think part of the fun would just be going around talking to people, and you do it in kind of an interview fashion. Then, like, you have an excuse to bullshit with more people and hang out and kind of enjoy the thing. I say it'll be fun, but I feel like I'm just staring down the barrel of another 15-hour editing sesh, which is something. Seeing what I can turn, seeing how much shit I can turn into gold as far as the film we have to work with. But could be fun. I'm going to be pressing for that, but, you, the tens of listeners out there, can hit us up on the socials at BlackSwarmPod on the artist formerly known as Twitter or Facebook, or just catch us out somewhere, because y'all know what we look like by now. Really, the thing that jarred me was like when we first started this and it was audio only and everybody just knew us by sight, and I'm like, how do you know this? But let us know if that's something you'd be interested in. People always enjoy free shit, so maybe, another koozie or two would be also a little something to hand out. So if you're not already preparing for your McKinley tailgate, you're already 2 weeks behind. Start hydrating now. Maybe carb up a little bit. The more carbs you have in your system, the more water your body's going to retain. You need to have that for a lot of the McKinley game festivities that go on throughout the day. Don't try and overdo it the night before and get your rest, get your 8 hours. But it's getting close, and I'm just talking myself into getting more and more excited because up until now I haven't really thought much of it besides a little bit of talking we've done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a really big time of the year, and we've already started planning for it, and um, it should be a really good time. Always love when it's at home, so looking forward to it. But we got a game this week we got to get through, and then all next week is Christmas.
All right, Belichick, we're on to Cincinnati, huh? You can't show like a little bit of excitement, like break character for just a second. Just, maybe let yourself look ahead and feel that, glee and joy you felt when you were a kid going into this.
I'm excited for it. I'm not going to sit here and break down everything we're going to do on this episode. That's for next week's episode.
Yeah, it is for next week's episode.
But we're going to have a banger of a tailgate sponsored by FW Renner and Sons. A whole bunch of food, smoked meat, pulled pork, brisket, all the sides, all the drinks. A lot of music, great vibes. Hopefully some free swag to give away one way or another, koozies or shirts or something. But overall, amazing vibes, fun time, loud atmosphere with a lot of people all coming together for one thing, and it is to relive something that they watched their whole lives growing up as kids and went through it as high schoolers, and now we're all old and we're still doing it.
You're my boy, Blue. All right, so with that, we'll get on out of here tonight and go Tigers, beat Warren.
Go Tigers.